Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome on back to the BTS Southeast Asian series. We're going to be taking a look at a match here between Team 123 as well as Ideal Gigabyte. Should be an absolutely fantabulous one. I'm at Lyrical Dota, joined today by Danny Lee Casts as well as Corrupt Drop Bear on the stats. Danny, do you know either of these teams particularly well? What are your thoughts on them in terms of how well they stack up to each other?
Well, when we were actually in the lobby, I thought I knew some of these players, and then now that we're actually in the game and the names change, it doesn't actually help. But a lot of the players from Team SatuDuaTiga 123, I know the players quite well if I actually remember who they are and who's who, because that'll be awesome. I'm pretty sure Corrupt Drop Bear is going to help me with this in a moment. Whereas for Ideal, I have casted a couple of their games. Name-wise, it doesn't help. So if I can get some names, then I'll let you know if I actually can remember as to how some of these teams play. But I think I haven't casted Ideal for a couple months now, so I think my opinion for them will be a little bit late or rusty.
Well, no problem. We're just going to be taking a look at how they end up looking. And, you know, I think that we talk a lot about sort of teams being able to be this top tier, this bottom tier, tier 2, tier 3. But really, at the end of the day, it's Dota that you're playing, and any individual draft in this current meta is going to be able to take a game off of another team. So I really like the fact that, you know, you're sort of coming on into this one and starting to take your picks that you feel comfortable with. We do end up having the Shadow Fiend banned out, as well as the Slardar Alchemist and the Doom into a first pick Darkseer, Dazzle, and the Night Stalker. I do have to say that while Night Stalker has been picked more and more often, it does sort of feel like it's a bit of a situational one where you want to pick it as a part of just a draft that wants to be able to take over the vision advantage. And I'm a bit surprised to see him this early when there's all of the sort of other really big heroes up on the board that you occasionally end up seeing, maybe the Tusk or potentially as well wanting to going back for maybe the Queen of Pain or something like that. What are your thoughts on a Night Stalker in the early stages of the draft?
Well, I think the major aspect of the Night Stalker is you have to look at what he gives the team. So you pick up a Dazzle, which is going to be your defensive support. Night Stalker in general, he's picked up because you want to have the early aggression. Now, I'm interested to know if this is a position 4 or a position 3 Night Stalker, as you sometimes see him run in position 4. He gives you a silence, which is amazing. Amazing in particular with a lot of the spellcast dependent heroes that are very popular in the meta. So the silence is huge. Also, don't forget, this is not just a silence. You also get mischance during both daytime and nighttime, 50% at nighttime, which is huge. So even physical right-clickers don't actually like going up against a Night Stalker. Also, you have a lot of tower diving potential because of him, and mostly during the second night times when you see the Night Stalker really peaking, he can be super aggressive, dive under towers, and help secure those kills for your team. So it's essentially forcing 123 in a position where during nighttime they have to stay extra vigilant and extra safe because there's a Night Stalker on the field.
Absolutely. You always need to be very aware of it, and you end up thinking about a couple of the heroes that tend to do well in the split pushing game. You think about the Anti-Mage, think about the Ember Spirit. Those heroes are always going to need to be very careful around the map because of that really low cast point on that Crippling Fear, and already we're going to see a couple of interesting bans out. That being said, I don't know if necessarily you're going to see Team 123 go for those type of heroes, as we already do have some very strong team fight oriented heroes in the Darkseer Tusk. But as far as bans go in the second round, we have the Lich as well as the Winter Wyvern, and the Queen of Pain also not going to be making an appearance. Juggernaut is going to be the last ban out in this round from Ideal, and based upon their draft, well, we do end up having the Night Stalker here that can have a bit of control in terms of being able to throw out that crippling fear. They don't have stuns, which is something that you can maybe exploit on the side of Team 123, and I think that's part of the reason that we don't see Night Stalker picked up a ton in the early stages, because he does provide a good amount of control, but not necessarily a great ability to sort of do a ton in the late game until you end up getting that Aghanim Scepter. Like, if you think about the way that Tusk ends up working in the late game, you can blink on in, Walrus Punch, get a long disable there, snowball afterwards to keep your allies alive. Versus Night Stalker, it really does come down to the vision advantage and then being able to get the Crippling Fear on a key target that doesn't have BKB.
I agree with you 100% there, and unfortunately they're not really adding to their lack of disable as they're going to third pick up an Undying here. So this is going to shift the Night Stalker into a position at 3 roll, meaning that the first nighttime not going to be as weak as it would if he was position 4, but at least it'll be a relevant nighttime phase for Ideal to maybe get the ball rolling and try and get maybe 1 or 2 kills during the first nighttime, and then have it really impact and hit hard during the second nighttime. They've got lots of sustain though. Between the Dazzle and Undying, these heroes are not going to be invincible, but they have a lot of effective HP to work with because of those heals.
Well, it makes you wonder kind of now, are we going to end up seeing an Ancient Apparition picked out here out of Team 123? It's in the pool. They also do have a couple of support. Well, they have the Tusk taken, which is probably going to be played in that 4 position, I would imagine, which would give the option open for an Ancient Apparition to be taken. But I don't know. They might not want to take that one. It does sort of give you a couple of problems in the laning phase. I also want to say that I think the Undying might have been a bit of a block pick. The fact that you already have the Tusk out there, Team 123 could have run that aggro dual lane that you end up seeing, which is incredibly potent. They still do have a couple of heroes that could be running it if they wanted to. Well, I guess actually with the Darkseer, it doesn't make much sense. So no, never mind. Disregard what I was talking about there. Witch Doctor going to be picking up instead another hero that can fight early. This could pose some problems here for Ideal if they're not careful. Just the bounces that this ends up bringing out and potentially being able to pick up that Death Ward as well. Always a problem.
And 4th pick Anti-Mage here for Ideal, and for me this is actually a really early Anti-Mage pickup. You can essentially save this to a last pick if you really want to, but maybe they were afraid that Team 123 was going to ban that out for that final pickup. But one thing to note is that, look at 123's draft. It doesn't really look like they're prepared to really deal with an Anti-Mage. They don't have the solid lockdown. So for Ideal, Anti-Mage is looking really good. His spell shield is not looking too attractive though, because you look at all the heroes here, Tusk and Witch Doctor do a phenomenal amount of physical damage, not magical damage. So this game, picking up the Anti-Mage, it's okay. He's not going to be too survivable with the spell shield, but he'll still do what he does. Just split pushing, farming, and eventually carrying the game for Ideal.
Definitely. They do end up taking the Gyrocopter, which also isn't necessarily a great answer to the Anti-Mage. I'm wondering if we might end up seeing a Tusk sort of transition into farming a bit more and leaving the Witch Doctor in the position 5 rather, so that way he can maybe get up a Shadow Blade into a Silver Edge if the game goes that late to be able to burst through that spell shield. But yeah, you're right. It does sort of seem a little bit lacking in terms of the single target lockdown that you really need to be able to keep an eye on and keep in place that Anti-Mage. Of course, you do still have the possibility to be able to pick it up with your mid lane hero, depending upon whose that is. I would kind of like to see a Wind Ranger. I feel like that would be very strong in this lineup. They do end up banning out the Dragonite, which also does make a decent amount of sense. It looks very much like Team 123 is going to group together and push. You've got that sustainability from the Witch Doctor Voodoo Restoration. And if they did want to run a last pick Dragonite, it would be able to get all up in the face of Ideal. And, you know, the other thing that you mentioned there as well with dealing with the Anti-Mage, there's several different components, but I think that the other thing you need to keep in mind is wave clear. And Team 123 don't have that in the highest order so far with their supports. Gyrocopter is going to be able to do it, but you don't always want to have to commit him alone in a single lane.
They've got Darkseer. I think he's a major wave clear here for 123, unless they pick something last that's going to have major wave clear. But yeah, as you said, it's not amazing. And also, I think in a scenario where if someone has to base defend because you know you're going up against an anti-mage, Team 123, they can TP back and defend the tower, but they don't have that catch. If they had a slot to pick up a disruptor, for instance, then that's when Ideal's anti-mage is going to be a little bit more reluctant when it comes to trying to go for that split push, because he could eventually get catched by some or caught by some of those heroes. So I think the Ideal's getting away with the anti-mage pick here, unless 123 wants to put more emphasis and last pick something that's going to be able to deal with him. But it's a mid or carry slot here for 123. Because Gyro can go mid if he really needs to, but I'm assuming he's going safe lane. This last pick mid, I presume, needs to not just have scaling damage, but I think he also has to have an extra disable for the team. Because right now, if we look at what they have, it's not amazing, but it's okay for a team fight, but not good for chasing.
Well, the thing that I was kind of wondering if maybe an Ember Spirit would have been a good pick there for 123 to be able to disable the blink from the anti-mage, but with the Viper pick, I don't think that they can run an Ember in the mid. If they wanted to, they still could run the Gyrocopter there in the mid and then switch over the Ember to the safe, but that's somewhat unorthodox as well, and I don't think it necessarily gels incredibly well with what the rest of their draft is trying to accomplish, which is early fighting and pushing together. I like the Invoker ban also. A Quas Wex Invoker would have really messed up Team 123's day. So they end up going for a last pick Bloodseeker. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't seen this guy in a little while. A nice way to be able to catch Anti-Mage there, though.
I was actually thinking about this hero because I know Yamate is a player, and I knew that Bloodseeker was one of his signature heroes, but I didn't actually think they were going to pick up the Bloodseeker. He's running an awesome set, by the way, but Bloodseeker in this game. Now, this is interesting because it adds an extra dynamic to the game. This is a hero that is decently tanky. He's got very good chase, in particular with the thirst, and that means that for ideal, if they're retreating and they don't have enough regen, or if they can't actually heal back up to a certain percentage, 123 has 100% vision, which means that it's technically a free track. Obviously no extra gold included, but it's extra vision, and I think that's what 123 needs, because if you have that extra vision, you know where to go, you know who to catch. And also with Anti-Mage, you can't just blink if there's a rupture. He'll have to actually TP all the way back to base, which will waste a little bit of time and keep him off the map, which in some departments you'll say it's not really worth it, but then again you have to think he's off the map, he's not farming, he's not pushing. And I think at that point you'd want him to be in that situation rather than free farming.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a very unique pick, and I think that in my eyes, at least, the big problem that you end up running into with the Bloodseeker is that he ended up getting nerfed in terms of the way that Thirst interacts. So obviously you end up getting the threshold up now to the 75%, so you don't get the extra bonus damage in the laning stage. Now you still are going to be a bit of a beast with the Blood Rage going out there, but if this is going to be that sort of aggressive dual lane that I'm expecting to see, he can take a lot of damage before he's able to get a last hit on a creep. So Blood Rage, great for getting the bonus damage, but if you don't get the last hit, you're not going to get the regen off the back of it. So time will tell. It does look like the Witch Doctor and everybody's going to be heading on down here to the bottom lane to start. And if Bloodseeker gets off to a good start, he's going to be in a fine position. But again, the big problem that I end up seeing with this, and I think they did address it with the last two picks, the Gyrocopter and the Bloodseeker, is that you pretty much are having to commit your cores to defend the waves. Obviously, you know, the Ion Shell is going to be able to sort of passively push on out the waves, but in the late stages of the game, particularly if you end up losing a Rax, the super creeps are going to be able to really tear through you, and I'm slightly concerned about the late game wave push that they have against the split push that's going to come out from the Anti-Mage. I think that they're going to be okay, but we talked a little bit about catching the heroes out with the Night Stalker Crippling Fear, and it might end up happening as we do end up seeing QWE, this Anti-Mage, doesn't blink first, so not going to be able to go on him, realizing that would be a little bit too much to ask. They get the nice shards. Oh, the Viper might be in a little bit of trouble. They end up getting a couple of bounces here. Also, the Rocket Barrage coming out, and the Viper is going to fall. First blood going the direction of this Gyrocopter.
That was a beautiful block coming out from the Tusk. Oh my goodness. If they got 2 kills there, that would have been perfect. But just getting that 1 kill onto the Viper off the bat, it's going to help 123. It's not going to win them the lanes, but at least it helps them out, gives them extra gold, and also that little extra injection of EXP as well. So they all hit their level 2s slightly quicker than the ideal heroes would typically. And, God, 123. Very, very happy with that.
So they actually changed up the lanings to be able to deal with kind of what I was talking about there, is the dealing with the dual lane, and actually it's going to be a Dazzle Anti-Mage against a tri-lane down here bot of the Gyrocopter Tusk and the Witch Doctor. Meanwhile, there's a Bloodseeker mid against the Undying Viper dual lane. This is going to be a tough one here for Yamate, and time will tell who ends up going forward and coming out ahead of this, but at least at the beginning, you're so close to being able to get killed off as this Bloodseeker, because you do get the extra, you know, obviously movement speed that comes out from Thirst, but it's still just going to be a really scary lane. You're not going to be able to outrun the Viper.
Yeah, and then QWE actually runs right through a couple of these 123 heroes. Going to get out quite safely, but with the cost of actually losing quite a bit of HP for him. So down bottom, nothing's really happening. Mid lane for Yamate on the Bloodseeker. You were talking about him just a moment ago. He's not getting any CS aside from the one every now and again that he's actually casting Blood Rage on. While actually getting...
It was a weird one.
Yeah, I've just lost my brain right now. It's just gone missing. Anyways, the Keto is being chased in the meantime. But Bloodseeker is not getting anything in this mid lane aside from just EXP, and this is really not good if you're a Bloodseeker, because if you put a hero in the mid lane, you want farm and you want EXP, you want everything. But he's not getting any of that, and because their team is tri-laning, there's going to be no support for Yamate, and he's going to have to try and sustain without the help of his team, although he's doing much better now. He's actually trying to hit Toy here and doing quite a bit of damage while he's at it.
Oh, Blood down bottom lane, they are able to get out on the anti-mage really, really close. And the reason I think that he felt comfortable to go forward there is because 1-2-3 was starting to get a little bit of aggressive in the bottom lane, and they brought the anti-mage down low. So Bloodseeker was starting to run a little bit more quickly. They were able to get a bit more damage on top of him, and he was able to apply a bit more pressure. Now, the Blood Rage on the creep, that was a bit strange. I think that what his plan was there was to try and deny out the creep passively by giving the bonus damage to the melee creep, and then he was going to be able to kill it off. But what ended up happening was Viper just killed the creep and then got a little bit of a heal off the top of it. So a bit strange, but regardless, it's still going to be relatively no big deal. If you take a look at last hits and denies right here, as Yamatai is very, very quick in this middle lane. Needs to be careful considering that we're seeing a couple of heroes drop low. It's a decent trade so far. He's been able to get 7 CS after that really terrible start with the Undying in his lane, and Viper is up to 13-3. So it's not awful, but they do end up going now down on top of QWE, and he's going to drop really low, is just barely able to get out again. 60 HP on him. And I wonder if now they're thinking about, you know what, we're going to be able to apply more pressure in the mid lane because the anti-mage is so low.
Yeah, I think so as well. And the pressure as well for Ideal. They've got decent defensive supports, but what happens if those supports get picked off? There's nothing the anti-mage can do, and they're essentially sitting ducks. So we could see some rotations to maybe try and kill off Toy, because you look at the positioning of 1-2-3 right now. The supports are in the jungle, and Ideal has no vision, so they're not going to expect any sort of rotations, and nobody's going to do this for his team. He's going to be the one to come in to try and jump on the Toy. He's just popped a salve, unfortunately. If he was at the same HP percentage, would have been easier, but it looks like they're going to try and go for the jump on now. Yamate's on the hill. Toy's going to pop a tree. Still no vision of the Tusk, it seems, and looks like they might go soon, or nobody's hanging around, but Viper's very defensively positioned, and here comes the snowball straight onto the Viper. So enough disables the ice shards as they're going to keep Toy in place, and even the creep's going to come in for the party. Quick finish up onto Viper, even going to be healed up as well, and Yamate being chased up by QWE, an anti-mage of all heroes to TP in. Well, you wouldn't have expected that, but looks like he's going to have to stay here now, because if he moves down to the bottom lane, he's not going to get any CS, and this mid lane is going to be empty.
Yeah, that's really a strange rotation. They didn't have the TPs on the Dazzle or the Undying, thinking they weren't going to need to rotate, and also just because of the pressure that's been constantly placed here on the bottom lane, they haven't been able to get to the side shop to get them, and obviously you don't want to take the courier away because that needs to be able to go to the mid lane for, you know, transporting boots and everything else. So a bit of a scary position right now. QWE obviously isn't going to go down in this lane, but I wonder if they might even just leave the anti-mage here and then move the Viper down to the bot lane now. Okay, they're going to put the Viper back, but a little bit unfortunate that the AM is going to be denied some amount of this farm, and he is only 6 CS right now at 4 minutes into the game. Going to be able to pick on up a bounty rune, but regardless, not at all the start that he wants.
Yeah, I don't think you would have wanted to keep the anti-mage in a Bloodseeker lane, though, because Yamate is almost 6. So, yeah, at least the anti-mage is going to go for a rotation this time, moving into the top lane, and the Night Stalker is now going to go for roam. Now, I like this move from Ideal. They're still shifting the anti-mage, but they're going to be moving the offlaner into a bit of a more aggressive role, into a roamer now. And it seems that nobody is going to be the target here. He's going to wait in position for the rest of the Viper to push out the creep wave. We have another pause. We've got lots of lag issues apparently, but hopefully this gank comes out successfully for Ideal, because it's the first nighttime, and because Gobajibby. I'm just gonna call him GB. I think it's much easier. So if GB can get a really early kill at this early into the nighttime phase, I think Ideal will be pretty happy with that. As long as I think just getting 1 kill on the Night Stalker during the nighttime is good enough. If they can get more, it's a bonus. If they don't, it's okay. They've at least gotten 1.
Yeah, and I'm going to commend you for calling him anything other than Night Stalker, honestly, just because that's what I'm going to be calling him throughout the rest of this cast.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a bit of an awkward situation right now. He does have the 2 points in Void, 1 in Crippling Fear, so might be able to find some type of initiation here on the Tusk, a hero that's sometimes a little bit harder to gank just because of the snowball that he ends up having. But if you're able to get the Crippling Fear off, obviously, even at that level 1, pretty good in terms of the amount of disable that you get, already up to a 5-second nighttime duration, which it looks like actually is going to back on out now, not wanting to go for it. So I don't know, maybe indecision, bit of bad luck, thinking that the Bloodseeker was going to be there, but Bloodseeker is already heading on back to the top lane and not going to be ganked at this point. And maybe they're thinking about going back in again. What do I know?
Yeah, and because Night Stalker is so tanky, he can dive the towers. But look at the TPs in. 2 TPs immediately. Witch Doctor as well as our Yamate, and they're just going to back out. So force that TP's Toy does not get caught in the shards. Oh, that would have been scary if he did.
That was definitely close, but Toy is going to be able to apply a bit more damage. It's going for the 3 points in the poison attack. I kind of would have almost rather seen going for a point in the a couple more points in the corrosive skin to tank on up slightly more, but I don't think that it's a terrible option to go this way, and is going to be doing a pretty good job in terms of last hitting in this lane. He hasn't been able to get the most, though. He is still below the Bloodseeker in terms of net worth, and I think that's largely just because he ended up dying a little while ago. But now we have a gank down in the bottom lane. Z's on the Gyrocopter is going to start to grow really low, but they did already commit the Void for this one, so is just going to be able to TP away. Good recognition by the Gyrocopter. He's able to make his way out of there, and the Night Stalker not finding any kills right now. A little bit of a sad guy.
Yeah, he needs more setup, I think. That's the only problem so far with GB on the Night Stalker. He needs more setup. They need more disables as well, because at this point, 1, 2, 3, if they get jumped on by any of these heroes, because there's actually only one available disable, once the disable's been used, they just TP out.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's enough burst on Ideal either to really kill off the heroes, because look at their lineup. You have a Viper that does decent right-click damage over time. That's fine. It's not burst. It's not like a Queen of Pain. You have a Dazzle who might get lucky with a heal bomb, and then you have an Undying that just does progressive damage with the constant decays, and maybe even getting lucky with the solar up if there's units. But it's not solid burst that's going to be available throughout the entire portion of the game. It's all through setup. So Ideal, it's unfortunate they're missing these kills, but it's because they've drafted themselves into this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just having a little bit of fun while we're hanging on out here and taking a look at the close-up of all of these heroes. Undying just looks like he doesn't know what's going on in this game. He doesn't have any idea what to do. It's kind of frustrating. Oh my god, Night Stalker. Anyways, as we get back on into this one, yeah, the thing that you mentioned there also about the lack of abilities to, I think, get out of to cancel TPs is going to be really, really relevant. 1, 2, 3, I think, aren't really going to be caught out that often, and I'm wondering if it might almost be worth it for Toy to go for more points in Nether Toxin instead of going for this poison attack, so that way he would be able to burst heroes that much more quickly, because obviously you're able to hit that much harder with the Nether Toxin down on top of you. We did end up having the blink away by the anti-mage as the first rupture was used in this game, and another instance of these ganks not being able to come to fruition just because they don't have the disable there to take on out the TPs.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see how the game pans out. It might turn out a little bit better here for Ideal as the game progresses and they start getting those items. I can't help but feel like they're going to have to pick up maybe a Yule Scepter on some of these, one of these heroes at least to cancel out the TP. But the thing is, they don't have any great Yule Scepter heroes. It's not like they're running a Queen of Pain or a Storm or a Shadow Fiend even. So Yule's it would have to be only picked up for the disable, but down bottom we're going to jump onto the Gyro and the Witch Doctor here. It seems QW either one to be leading, but here comes Ice Shards. It latches onto 2, but do you really wanted to catch onto 2? They can't finish off the Gyro. They bring him in with the Snowball, but the Viper finishing him off with the Viper, with the last hit. Now nobody is slowed to hell, and Jibby actually gets out with a tiny amount of HP, but Toy in the meantime is going to be losing his life instead. And now they're going to chase after the Dazzler that actually got ruptured and picked off as well. 2 heroes dead. They get a Gyrocopter kill, and Yamate, he wants more. But they don't have vision of anyone else except for QWE that's going to go for a bounty rune, but he's fine. No one's going to chase him out. But Yamate has other plans. Going to be going into the enemy jungle for now.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good move right there. They ended up trading it relatively evenly, 500 gold apiece. The big thing was that the Gyrocopter went down, and that's definitely a hero that needs to be able to be relevant in this game. I would love to be able to see, as we do end up having the Darkness committed, where's the Night Stalker at right now? He's just heading on back up to the top lane to make sure that he gets the extra value out of that. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit later also out of this lineup, maybe even something like Ideal picking up an Abyssal Blade. That's going to need to be the item for Anti-Mage that he gets, but he probably doesn't get it super soon. Like, he's obviously going to need to get the Battle Fury first. I might like it before Vlad's. It could potentially be one of those situations where you end up getting like the Manta and then into Basher afterwards, but they need some way to be able to really lock down the side of 1, 2, 3 here, as everybody ends up disconnecting from the game. That is somewhat frustrating.
Well, welcome to Southeast Asia with the constant connection issues and whatnot, but it's okay. Hopefully they do reconnect. Maybe they're disconnecting again. All right, so We're
Yeah.
going to have flashing lights at the top for now. We'll have a disco. I think at this point we could just sort of sit back and take a look at the stats now anyway as the game's sort of just stuck in place. So if we take a look at both sides, looking at major items coming through, then none of them are coming up anytime, no, it's not coming up soon, but we can see the components for it. And Viper going for the standard mechanism for the sustain, which is, it's nice. It's going to add on to the sustain that they already have. There's nothing else aside from the one piece for the Battle Fury on an anti-mage, whereas on 1, 2, 3, it is literally items galore. Your Darkseid is going to be going for that mechanism pretty soon, so they have their own regen. And I guess at that point, there's really nothing else except for just cheap, cost-efficient items for both sides.
Yeah.
For the Bloodseeker, what would you think Yamate would pick up this game? Would it just be the Sanjin Yasha?
Yeah, definitely. It's not going to be. I played a game the other day where a Bloodseeker ended up going for a Force Staff, and it just made me sad. Like the sort of the old build there where you end up getting it, but that's definitely not the thing. I think Sanjin Yasha is okay. I wouldn't mind going for an well, probably not too early of a basher. You need attack speed on this hero because he ends up automatically getting the bonus damage coming out from Thirst, as well as the movement speed to keep up. So really, the big thing that he needs is just that attack speed. So I wouldn't mind seeing afterwards going for I don't know, potentially something like a Maelstrom to be able to sort of reroute or net, to be able to get that attack speed up and maybe farming slightly better. The thing that I really want to focus on right now, though, is let's take a look at where these lanes were. Darkseer right now, 54 last hits at 8.5 minutes roughly. Who was his lane counterpart? That was the Night Stalker, I believe, up in that top lane, who is at half his CS. You take a look at the Gyrocopter, the other CS opponent for him was 15 on the Anti-Mage. They're just getting destroyed in that account. If you take a look at the difference in team net worth, it's a 5,000 net worth lead difference at just under 9 minutes into the game, as well as an experience lead of about 3,500. These are numbers that you normally expect to see when the kill score is like, 10 or 11 to 0. And the fact that it's right now at this point with only a 3-kill lead is just, it totally shows the dominance that we're seeing out of 1, 2, 3 in terms of their ability to just have a great laning stage right here.
Yeah, and I think for Ideal, it's hurting them so much more because they're running a draft that needs momentum. They're the ones that's supposed to be having the lead, that's supposed to be the ones that are aggressive on the map, having more heroes disconnect. They're the ones that's supposed to have the item advantage, the EXP advantage, and to be pushing into 1, 2, 3, not the other way around. And because of the way the Ideal has drafted their heroes, if they're behind, they don't have the best catch-up mechanism outside of an anti-mage. And if you look at 1, 2, 3 so far, because of how underfarmed anti-mage is, I can't help but feel like this hero is going to come online far too late before he actually contributes anything. He can try and come in and maybe try and get a cute mana void. There's no high mana pool heroes actually on the map aside from the Darkseer, who is probably going to be a decent mana pool for the majority of the fight anyway. So, Ideal. They went for this draft, it's just not working.
You could almost say that it's not ideal, and I'm just going to leave that hanging right there in the air as we move on through. Other things that are worth noting, your Tusk almost has more net worth than the Anti-Mage, as does the Witch Doctor for the side of 1, 2, 3. They said that they have 5 minutes left of pause, and so what ends up happening, just so all of you guys are aware out there, in the world of Dota 2 that are currently watching, if you do end up running out, 1, 2, 3 have the option to unpause the game. And if that happens, it's going to be the Night Stalker microing every single other hero on this team, or potentially just GGing out, depending upon how the game ends up going. But we might end up seeing some very, very funky stuff in a few minutes here. Possibly. I don't know. It would be silly.
We could see a 1 versus 5 right now. Just have Night Stalker micro everyone's hero individually. It could be StarCraft versus Dota.
That's the dream right there.
Okay. Newsflash for people I didn't know, literally Flash. Flash from StarCraft 2 has retired. I'm so upset about that. He was such a legend. Unfortunately, he didn't really manage to get to the same caliber in StarCraft 2, though. I think that was the main thing for me about him.
Yeah, I know. And to all of you people that are going to be spamming out in the chat right now, Dota 2 stream talking about StarCraft 2, dead game, whatever. All right, first of all, StarCraft 2 is where all of the esports stuff really started back in the day, and it was glorious. And StarCraft 1 Brood War also, Flash, just an absolute monster. I'm really sad to see him go too, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's one of those moments, like it's Kobe Bryant that ended up retiring the other day also in the NBA, which is just a whole nother story. But like, if you're not having the success success. You just kind of want to leave gracefully. I feel like it's time. It is sad to see him go, though.
Yeah. So a legend, unfortunately, that's going to depart, but it also means there's room for new talent, and that's good news because you get to see something fresh, something new, and also a new personality because you all love to know our, I guess, the pros. Get some really nice ones coming through. Then you also get the nasty ones that aren't so friendly, but that's okay. They still have their fans, the
Definitely.
salty ones.
Well, and the question is, who's going to be the first pro player to end up retiring from the Dota 2 scene? That's what I really want to know about. I guess we've had a few of them over the days. But regardless, everybody getting back in. We're going to be ready to go. The Anti-Mage is like, come on, guys. I've been waiting for you this whole time. Why aren't we starting? But actually, he was the one that was disconnected. And we're going to see if the farming wars are going to continue to favor 1, 2, 3, as the Anti-Mage has finally found a place, but is it going to be for long? Darkseer is here now. We also have the Tusk roaming on in, but 3 heroes are in the area. Maybe the Night Stalker, they're sort of baiting him on out a little bit and going to try and take a fight up top here.
I don't think they're going to even attempt this. You shouldn't really be fighting with the Anti-Mage at this point. QWE needs so much. I don't think he has any time to... Oh, God, here we go again. This time it's 1, 2, 3 that's paused. Skype's storage is full? Skype has storage?
I don't know. My dog ate my homework. The server died. Whatever. These things end up happening throughout the course of a game of Dota 2. But regardless, it is perfectly fine. Nobody up here. He does end up having that sentry ward also in the gauntlet strength. I wonder if he's going to be going for a quick bracer. Or maybe he's just going to end up going for an urn. That is something that's kind of interesting. I think that maybe you end up trying to double down on the sustain, and since you've already been able to get several of the early kills on the side of 1, 2, 3, they end up trying to be able to group up together around the gyrocopter once he ends up getting a level 11. Actually, they probably could even start grouping up relatively soon here on level 6. That he's got the call down. You take a look at the hero levels across the board, and only Viper is really anywhere in a decent spot for Team Ideal. I guess Night Stalker's okay. He does have the 2 points in the Hunter in the Night as well as 3 points into Void, but it kind of feels like the supports are really lacking, and the Undying in particular, with only 2 levels in the Tombstone, he could definitely get killed off.
Yeah, and this is an issue too, because Ideal's supposed to somehow hold off for this Anti-Mage, but with the 4 heroes that they have, I don't think they actually can. They're going to end up just being food for 1, 2, 3. And I think the main problem is because they drafted such defensive heroes, when it comes to aggression, it's just not there. So, aggression is not an option for Ideal anymore. It's just going to be purely turtle Dota and hope that Anti-Mage is going to come online and finish the game for them. But I think it's just too much of a burden to put on one hero. If you've got a secondary core that can at least fulfill a similar role or at least something close to what Anti-Mage does, then it sort of alleviates that pressure and your team doesn't rely on that one hero. Because if QWE dies during the late game, Ideal has 4 creeps. That's all they have, 4 creeps and an Anti-Mage.
Yeah, it's really not that good. They're going to be in a very precarious position. We do have, again, it's nighttime, or it's daytime now, so we might have Ideal on this Night Stalker. Like, they're roaming all 5 heroes together. Like, you know what, we're done with this game. There's been so many pauses. We're just going to start diving the tier 1s. They drop on down the call down. Well, yeah, he's just going to end up going down there. The shard's going out, everything committed, and they're just going to be starting to pressure this tier 1 tower. Also, they do end up having the Blood Rage on top of the gyrocopter. This is a pretty cool combo here. You get the bonus damage from the flak cannon and also the bonus damage from the call down. And that's sort of an element of the Bloodseeker that we haven't seen utilized a ton recently, is the fact that you're able to sort of get the multiple stacks of damage that comes out from them. And I'd love to be able to see this utilized more often.
Yeah, well, remember the first time it got changed on Bloodseeker, we saw so much Bloodseeker Zeus. It was fun, but then after all, it just got old and everyone realized it wasn't as amazing as it was. But for this game, putting it on the gyrocopter is a hero that can definitely utilize that. So for 1, 2, 3, it's just an extra asset to use. And because they're already dealing this much damage, it doesn't hurt for them to add more on top of it.
Certainly not. And we do have another dive here behind the tier 1 tower. With this advantage they've been able to build, we do have ended up seeing the tombstone drop. Nobody taking a good amount of damage. Wall has been committed now. And I think that at least at this point, they're going to be able to go a little bit further here. Viper ends up getting Walrus Punch on up. Nobody surged up and going to go away. Oh, the silence as well as the call down. Toy ends up going down. A couple more quick kills. Oh, God, Ideal. What is even happening in this game? This is disgusting right now. Nobody's going to end up TPing away, but I think that they can just take out this tier 1 tower so swiftly.
They can, and I think the only good news here for Ideal is that QWE has been left untouched in the top lane, and he is slowly starting to progress towards the Battle Fury. But I think this Battle Fury is going to be built in vain, because after a while there's going to be no lanes left, and he's always going to have to be cautious where he farms, because you need to be worried about where these 1-2-3 heroes are. There's so much kill potential on 1-2-3's draft. It is disgusting. And especially with these aggressive wards that are now being placed, one in the Radiant jungle and one right next to the base, they're going to see every single movement from Ideal. And it's so difficult for them to make any sort of plays because it's going to be spotted.
Yeah, and the other thing is also, like, even if they end up trying to group together as 5 and take a team fight, all of the tier 1 towers are still up for 1-2-3, so they can reinforce and get into the fights quickly enough to be able to keep their heroes alive. They just finished up the mechanism on the Darkseer, and with the Surge on up also, it's only level 1, but still, it's relevant. They can get in here into the engagements and make sure that none of their team ends up going down, unless there's enough burst damage, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to find it. The 2-man smoke is going to run on into the 4-man smoke. Actually, they're just going to run on into Toy, maybe? They're kind of thinking about it. Jostling position. Nobody is showing on the map, and I think right now Ideal realized that they're going to run into 5 heroes possibly, but they actually aren't, because it's only 2 that are smoked up. Tombstone ends up getting dropped, and they're just going to walk away from this one. There's no reason to fight into it.
So Tombstone dropped, and essentially nothing happened. So Ideal, they tried to go for a smoke. It didn't work. They found one hero, but no fight happened anyway. This is Ideal essentially just trying to put together as much as they can, but 1-2-3 is not handing them anything. They're playing so safely. They're playing together. They're not overextending. They're not getting cocky. They're not doing any silly plays. They're still doing the right thing. They're getting rid of this map control. They're taking towers. And unfortunately for Ideal, as much as they want to fight, they simply can't. There's too much HP, too much regen, and also too much damage outcoming from 1-2-3 for Ideal to comfortably want to fight into those 5 heroes. So I think for them, they've just got to... Do they have to turtle it? There's nothing else that they can do at this point. They can try and fight, but they're just going to die. So I think at this point, just defend.
I think that this is a really good play here by 1-2-3. They realize that they need to be able to keep applying the pressure, and they're going to go on into Roshan, take this down, and then probably go for a tier 2 mid, and then maybe even high ground, because the high ground defense is not going to be there for Ideal. You do still have, obviously, the Night Stalker who can deal a decent amount of damage, doesn't have phase boots yet. Viper has his mechanism, and Dazzle should be able to keep you alive with the Tombstone there, but it's always going to be a real concern to make sure that you're able to find an answer to this anti-mage, and if you just take down a lane of barracks, that's a great answer to them. If they get there's a real possibility that they get a lane of barracks by 17 minutes here, depending upon how quickly they opt to push. And they are pinging on out Roshan now. They realize that this is a possibility. They smoke on up, but they're not going to be able to get there in time. Rosh ends up going down, and they don't have any answer. They do have wards up here on the high ground also, so if the smoke ends up popping, all right, no, they're just going to go straight mid and then go afterwards for high ground, it looks like.
So high ground is happening for 1-2-3. Ideal... They're going for another smoke with 3 heroes. They're going to spot out a Witch Doctor, which will be a nice juicy kill, but it's so risky. He's going to TP out yet again. So no kill, and they have to leave. Oh, the dilemma is real. Oh, this is not what you want.
This is terrible. Not gonna lie, it's just terrible. It's really not going good. You commit the void, and then afterwards, that was your one ability to break a TP on your team. And now they're going to be pushing on in here. Darkseer currently has Mechanism and Blink Dagger at 15 minutes into this game, and it looks like they're going to be able to maybe find out, oh god, if he vacuums right now, he'd be able to find QWE. We do have a TP up on this anti-mage. He's going to end up TPing out of there, and thankfully they're not going to be able to find that kill, but all around, it's just, it looks like it's too much for them to deal with, and all of this early aggression, 1-8 is currently the score. They dropped the Tombstone, but this Tombstone's just going to get fed over to them. They do end up dropping the Soul Rip. There's going to be the shards. Oh man, the Undying, vacuum back, the wall, the call down, everything just going wrong. They commit the shallow grave for Toy, but they're already in a position where they're going to be able to take this on down, and then Ziz is going to be completely fine. Darkseer gets another kill. What is even happening in this game? We do have the Bloodseeker pretty deep into this, and he is going to eventually pop. That's 600 gold going back the direction of the Anti-Mage. But they still were able to dive behind the tier 3 tower and come away with 2 or 3 kills there.
Well, then I think for Ideal, just getting 1 kill is the best scenario that they could have hoped for. They lose a T2 in the process, but I think because the Bloodseeker died, it just forces everyone on 1, 2, 3 to back up, to regroup, to wait for the hero to come in. QWE might get solo killed here by nobody. The damage isn't there, unfortunately. He's by himself. QWE gets out very close to picking up a Battle Fury. Actually just picked it up now. He's also been earned up, negative earned, so he's taking a lot of damage previously, but Battle Fury is up on the Anti-Mage 16 minutes in. This is also, mind you, a Battle Fury without treads. This is a decent, it's okay for a timing, but I don't know if the game's going to last that long, and now, oh, poor Jibby just gets caught out. And even the stun, Shallow Grave really doesn't matter. Is the speed from Yamate is just too much. They're going to outspeed Jibby. He stops and even concedes his own life. And that's the Night Stalker dead for 30 seconds. And 1, 2, 3, obviously going to be pushing down the mid lane. And Ideal, I think they have to just give this T2 tower away and hope that high ground is going to be a little bit better than that low ground defense if they even attempt it.
They have to hope that 1, 2, 3 don't push for the next 20 minutes. That's the only way that they win, but that's not going to happen. Like they're in such a great position. They don't even really have a great opportunity to come back in terms of their spells. Like if you think about what you normally need, you need something like the Vacuum or the Winter Wyvern Curse or anything like that. One of those big team fight ultis, and they just don't have it. They also don't have the greatest lane push. And now we're going to be seeing the tier 2 tower, all of them currently down for Ideal, a 15,000 net worth lead currently in effect. They drop the tombstone again and they just let it drop. Now the snowball forward. This is the slowest destruction that I've ever seen in my life as we end up seeing the Night Stalker go down. It just feels like the whole side of 1, 2, 3 is moving in slow motion and Ideal is moving even slower. Now we're going to end up seeing the tower go down. Like, you think about the way these team fights usually go, it's like blinks and hexes and everything going all over the place, but they're just walking into them, and the snowball forward now, Dazzle's going to end up falling, as is Toy. Just too much damage too quickly, and they're back up to full health, full HP, full mana, full everything. Oh, God.
This game is unwinnable. By all means, it is absolutely unwinnable. Unless, as you said, 1, 2, 3 takes a 20-minute sort of farming phase, which is unnecessary, but if it happens, it happens. But instead, they're just going to keep on going for these kills. Poor GB as well as the Undying. Going to completely melt, and Dazzle picks his head out, wanted to go for the save, but these heroes just die too much. Yeah. And even the Tuxie is just going to corral the Dazzle into the fountain.
It's good. It's good stuff that you end up happening. I mean, they've got all the sustain in the world. They're taking the second set of barracks. Anti-Mage is doing the best that he can, but this just isn't a draft. Like, it was a complete and total draft win for them. I mean, he's going to be able to pressure this tower, but as you mentioned there, with no treads, with no Manta, he can't take the towers. He doesn't have that sort of general, pressure that you would normally expect from an Anti-Mage in the split push game. And they're going to get mega creeps here. Well, it looks like they're going to back out, at least at this point. They still have the Aegis just now getting reclaimed. It's just, oh God. What more can you say?
Well, I think at this point they should say GG. I think that's all they can really say at this point. Or they can chug along and try and delay the game for as long as possible, but they're really putting everything into QWE, just finishing up treads, and actually going to finish up with Vladimir's as well, which is that done? That's actually done. Vlads and treads. Progression's there for the Anti-Mage, but can QWE speed this up at all? I don't know if he can. He can keep trying to split push. I think that's all he can really do. Never come back to base until it looks like he can actually get a kill.
Yeah, it's Aghanim Scepter finished on Witch Doctor at 20 minutes. You've got Sanjin Yasha, Helm of the Dominator, and 3,000 gold. Blink Dagger up on the Bloodseeker and Sanjin Yasha. The Tusk also has his Blink Dagger. I mean, what more can you say? It's right now, there are more thousands of worth difference between these two teams than there are minutes in this game, by about 5,000. It's just, you need to start thinking about new ways to identify the lead that you have here. It's just going to be a jump forward. They're going to be able to get the toss. There's just no way for this to end up coming any other direction. And honestly, at this point, if I'm Ideal, I start thinking about, all right, how are you going to start to sort of address the second game? As the Aghanim Scepter, which Dr. Ulti comes out, and everything else, like, I think that honestly at this point you should probably just GG out and start thinking about game 2, because you're not going to be getting any new information here. Yamate ends up trying to commit the Mana Void. He's going to end up going down. The rocket is going to connect onto him. He blinks on over to the other side and looks like he is finally going to be able to get out. Very close to getting taken out there, but a Satanic now finished on this gyro on top of the Sanjin Yasha.
This game is not getting easier. And I absolutely agree with you with what you said. I'm not too sure why Ideal is continuing the game, because if you're playing this game as Ideal, isn't this hurting your morale more than helping it? Because you said they're not learning anything, so what's the point of this game? Is it to make 1, 2, 3 somehow mentally tired? I don't think it's happening if you're killing heroes.
I think it's 3-2-2 the dream. That's what they're really looking for. It's pretty close. They're not going to be able to quite get it because there's not going to be another kill on anybody from the side of Ideal. GG ends up getting called, and unfortunately that's going to be it. You talk about their morale dropping low. That was my morale dropping low. 1, 2, 3 take an incredibly convincing game 1. I don't know if I've seen a stomp that hard ever. Hopefully we end up seeing Ideal come back strong the next one. I mean, it's worth noting this was very much a draft win, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are we going to see in the next game?
I'm hoping Ideal puts up more of a fight against 1, 2, 3 in the second game, and I think also having a draft that can do more than one thing and also be a little bit more versatile, because we saw with this one, if you fall behind with this draft, there is no way in hell you're coming back unless the anti-mage gets farm. And with the way that 1, 2, 3 played, it was so quick that Ideal had no chance to scramble any sort of defenses, levels, and items on their heroes as well as the anti-mage to really have a chance at coming back. It was just, they drafted themselves into a hole and they essentially just suffered because they had no way of playing the game differently to have a more positive effect for them.
Yeah.
So...
Well, we're going to be going on into Game 2 in just a second. We're going to have to switch over there very quickly because I have a feeling that they're probably going to want to get right back into the Game 2. Thank you all very much for watching. It was an absolute pleasure casting for you guys. Hope you enjoyed the cast, and we'll see you in a second. Stick around. Once again, at Lyrical Dota, at Danny Lee Casts, and at Corrupt Drop Bear on the stats. See you guys in a few here.